Corpse Party is what brought me into the realm of horror games that don't have to be in full 3D to be good and creepy. That and others like Angels of Death provide horror scenarios in a format from RPG Maker instead of the big engines like Unreal, Unity, or Frostbite. And it can work in a surprising way. Today we're diving into another horror game made in RPG Maker, albeit on a smaller scale than the likes of Corpse Party. It was originally a freeware title back about 10 years ago and was recently remade with new visuals, difficulty, and events both on PC and Nintendo's hybrid console. Let's dive right into this jump scare filled 2D horror. Here is my review of The Witch's House MV for the Nintendo Switch. In this game you play as Viola, a girl playing in the woods that appears to be trapped by large magical roses, only being able to go into a house said to be the home of a witch. With a black cat seemingly as her guide and save point, she ventures into the house only to find herself in the company of lots of traps and horrors that have a million ways to bring a quick end to her life. Now I think this story is very good, but I can't really say why because of spoilers. Your trek through the house will slowly give you bits and pieces of the plot, from apparitions that appear as you play to the many journal entries you find to give you the backstory of the witch. But I will say that there's a big reveal towards the ending that is really good and brings a lot of thought material to the whole adventure. Even more so when you go for the secret ending by not talking to any of the save points to give you even more background lore on that reveal. When it comes to gameplay, MV is a 2D adventure puzzle game originally created in RPG Maker VX. As you trek through the house, you'll be interacting with everything, finding items to use for puzzles, and occasionally evading traps and dangers as they come about. Though as a remake, this is a little different from the original freeware version of The Witch's House. The visuals have been overhauled. While it is still technically in a 4:3 ratio, I didn't really even notice with how well the darkness of the rooms blend in with the stealthily hidden black borders. We also have a new extra difficulty setting that's unlocked upon beating the game with the true ending, changing up a few puzzles and events. Now let's go into progression. This is an exploration horror game with two things in mind: exploration and constant danger. Each floor you visit will have a few rooms you can explore with items and things you can collect and interact with. Bring a frog with you to operate a lever that you can't use, or pick up a skull to later place into a puzzle room to unlock the next area. It all feels very in tune with classic horror, with gathering items and using them to solve puzzles. And although it does sometimes feel a little intentionally dated, this game does have you actually going into your inventory screen and using the item where it needs to be used instead of it just asking you to use it. Though I do think it was implemented well with what they were going for, with experimentation of not just simple doors being interactable with items, but random things on a table or cabinet. But the real thing that's going to throw you for a loop with all of this item and exploration stuff is danger. And by danger, I mean there are 100 ways for the house to kill you. From the very first room you enter, walk forward like anyone would and hit a little spot in the middle, and boom, the walls turn you into a mess of blood and goo. The Witch's House is big on jump scares and making you second guess every decision you make. Walk up to an item and you will eventually think, so do I actually need this, or is this just here to bait me into taking it so I can die again? It's even to the point where you need to explore and already figure out where something goes. Even being given a book can lead you to death by reading it instead of placing it in a cabinet. But this is a system I didn't really mind. There are some really well done jump scares built into this, from doing a puzzle slightly wrong and having a giant spider rush you, to having a ghostly apparition of a painting chase you around the room for taking her sheet music. While we're on the topic of the jump scares, is the game scary? I think it does what it's trying to do well. I wasn't on the edge of my seat all the time like I am when playing games like Nun Massacre, but all of the major jump scares spooked me quite a bit. I wouldn't say I was scared the entire time, but when they hit, it worked. And one last thing I liked about the horror elements of this game were difficult and selfish decisions the game forces you to make to progress. I liked making these difficult choices and feeling guilty after, and the game likes it too. They'll throw that guilt right back into your face later on. And all this horror and death brings to my different take on the difficulty systems. In The Witch's House, there is only one difference between easy and normal difficulties. On normal, dying kicks you back to the title screen to resume your last hard save. while easy mode respawns you at the beginning of the room you were in before you triggered the death sequence. I actually preferred using easy mode as I was really interested in seeing all of the different death animations and not having to redo anything to resume my adventure. I actually went out of my way to do the wrong decision just so I could see how Viola dies in this scenario. Now, while I really enjoyed a lot this game had to offer, I will say that content and length isn't its strong suit. It is a very bite-sized little horror, with my first trek through the game taking about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And considering I did waste a lot of time figuring out one of the puzzles early on, it might be even less for some of you. Now, there is the extra difficulty option and 3 different endings you can get depending on where you go during the final sequences in the house, but there really isn't a lot of content here. That might make this game something you'll want to watch for later on a sale. Next, let's go into presentation. With visuals, I think the 2D system works just fine. There is a little bit of a blur to the models, but the sprites overall do look larger and more detailed than the original game. And like I said earlier, despite the 4:3 ratio being there, with how well the dark rooms and effects blend into the borders, I didn't even realize there were borders until I looked for them. And when it comes to performance, no issues. No frame drops, no crashing, no freezing, no problems to speak of at all across 2 playthroughs. And with that, let's go into battery life. The Witch's House MV gives the original model a range of 3 hours and 25 up to 4 hours and 5. The Nintendo Switch Lite gets a range of 3 hours and 44 up to 4 hours and 28. The Red Boxer V2 2019 model gets a range of 8 hours and 10 up to 8 hours and 41. And the OLED model gets a range of 8 hours and 31 up to 9 hours and 20. In conclusion, The Witch's House MV is another example of a horror game that can work well from within the RPG Maker engine. While I do think that $15 for only an hour or 2 of game isn't the greatest deal out there, this is still a pretty good bite-sized horror, from its well-done jump scare system to the crazy story reveal towards the finale. If nothing else, grab it when it's on sale. Reviews to Go rates The Witch's House MV for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.